origin of life on the planet is the sea. Seen from above, it gives the impression of harmony. It reawakens in us the mystical and the divine. Imagine now being a dolphin, free to live according to your needs. There's a dolphin dormant in all of us. I'm like a wild animal. I live intensely for the moment. I decided to attempt the unthinkable, to reach 100 meters below the sea. I am convinced that man can go further.
Lunch air, 1 minute 30 to official 30.
So I'm floating on the surface next to the competition line. And at this point, I'm just focusing on staying relaxed and breathing. I hear the final 20-second countdown. I start to inhale, fill my lungs, and pack as much air into my lungs as possible. Then I turn over, dive, and swim to a depth of 30 meters, where I take my last stroke and then enter into the free fall. When you free dive, there needs to be an acceptance of exactly what you are doing. There's no escaping the fact that you are taking yourself away from the element that you require for survival from air, and you are stretching that distance as far as you dare to take it. And so if you're too competitive in this kind of a sport, then it's going to ultimately be your downfall at some point in your career. Your motivation has to come from something deeper.
It was in the Red Sea that I first saw dolphins. I was 7 years old. My brother and I were on the lower deck of a steamship en route from China to France. I felt my heart beating very fast. I was very moved, curious, and excited. I would have liked to touch one. I was born in Shanghai in 1927. My father was an architect at the French municipality of Shanghai. My family often spent our summer vacations in Japan. My brother and I spent our days splashing in the water with a gang of children who became our regular playmates. My companions were often the children of ama divers. In archaic Japanese, the word ama means ocean women. The Japanese ama practice the ancient art of breath hold diving, and they ensure the underwater harvest of oysters. I dreamed of living on the beach in the tropics, on an island, naked diving into the crystal clear waters from dawn to dusk. My father resigned himself to the fact that I thought of only one thing: the sea. One spring morning in 1948, I left, knapsack on my back, and for 5 years I traveled in all senses. Morocco, Denmark, Sweden, Canada. Having satisfied some of my needs for adventure and travel, it was time to do something serious. So I got married to a wonderful Danish woman, and we soon settled in Miami, Florida.
When I think of Papa, I think of him wearing a Speedo, a black Speedo. I never saw him wear blue jeans. I never saw him wear a suit, always in a bathing suit. My earliest memory. Papa went down to Miami to do an interview at the Seaquarium, and they offered him a job. I remember going to see him and looking through those large panes of glass in the tank and watching him go around and feed all the critters inside, you know, the big fish, the groupers and the turtles. And he had on the hard helmet and he had these heavy boots, so he walked like some creature from the Black Lagoon, you know. I was about 8.
Once you got down there with the feeding basket, barracudas, sharks, all the nasties came at you for food. And that freaked out most of the regular divers. So it took spearfishermen and that type who were used to being around big fish.
I had done all kinds of jobs, but without knowing it, I was about to make a decisive step that would, at that moment, completely change the course of my life. It was that day at the Seaquarium in Miami in 1957 that I saw Clown, and she recognized me. And it was as if we had always known each other.
Clown was one of the main dolphins because he was so smart. He did most of the demanding tricks, and you could teach her almost anything. Everybody loved Clown. Jacques loved Clown. I loved Clown. There wasn't anybody who ever knew that dolphin that didn't love her. Of all the dolphins, he was the one that seemed almost human.
I sincerely believe that man is somehow related to the diving mammals, who, like us, are warm-blooded and who have to hold their breath to go underwater. If you're afraid of them, they will feel it and they will understand it. And if you're not afraid and you show them confidence, they will understand it too. There is somehow a connection, you see.
Jacques had a certain ability in the water that the dolphins were intrigued by. He was different than most people. He could hold his breath longer, he could dive deeper. He was relaxed. They can sense the heartbeat. They can sense a person's temperament in the water. And so, yes, Jacques did have a certain calling. I think the dolphins were fascinated by Jacques' ability in the water.
Dolphins were studied either from the clinical perspective in the laboratory, or they were turned into trained dogs. I did not want to make this mistake with Clown. She taught me to hold my breath longer on every dive, to let myself sink down, and to integrate myself with the water totally, slowly, effortlessly. She was the spark that ignited in me the passion for breath hold diving.
Jacques started practicing for how long he could stay underwater and how deep he was diving. This was in middle to late 50s. Weren't too many skin divers around. Most of us in those days could dive 75 feet. So Jacques wanted to go deeper.
Noi uomini del mare non siamo normali. Noi ci chiamano sub, ma in realtà siamo subnormali, perché quello che ha fatto Jacques Mayol non è normale, perché se fosse normale veramente saremmo tutti matti. E io la mattina mi svegliavo e dico: Jacques, dov'è? Jacques? No, è in piscina. Io pensavo stava in piscina tranquillamente a farsi lo yoga come poi. No, stava sott'acqua. Che cazzo sta a fare sott'acqua in piscina? No, niente. Io dico: stava sott'acqua in piscina, lì così, per 4 minuti, 2 minuti. Eh sì, cioè, raggiungeva dei 4 minuti, tranquillo, ma anche di più. Come cavolo ha fatto, io non ho mai capito.
There had been many warnings from physiologists about the risks of going down to 50 meters. A diver risked almost certain death at the 50-meter mark. Therefore, it was understandable that athletes did not try to exceed it. No athlete except Enzo Maiorca. Maiorca was well known among deep-sea fishermen in Sicily for the remarkable duration of his dives and for the great depths that he reached when he was helping his friends capture fish. This proud and cultured Sicilian with a broad chest of a gladiator reigned as absolute king of the sea depths for many years. The news of the Italian's world records rapidly spread around the world. His latest challenger was a new arrival on the scene, me.
It wasn't until I moved to the Bahamas that Jacques came over and asked me to be his coach for a world record 200 feet. It took quite a few people to be involved in a world record attempt because it's dangerous, it's going deep, and there's other people involved like the divers who are on the bottom building up bottom time. Very dangerous for them.
The day I attempted to set my 60-meter record, I was literally suspended in time and space. Nothing else existed except my goal. I shot down into the abyss.
Quando vai sott'acqua le sensazioni che ti accompagnano in un mondo normale scompaiono. Il tuo corpo assume un peso diverso, una dimensione diversa. Hai il cuore che batte pianissimo, 12, 13 battiti al minuto. Hai il peso, la forza gravitazionale che insiste su di te in modo diverso. A 150 metri hai 16 kg su ogni centimetro quadrato del tuo corpo. Hai i polmoni che sono un 16° del volume iniziale. Il problema dell'apnea è la sincope, cioè quando il tuo corpo ha così poco ossigeno, lo tiene per il cuore e per il cervello, in quel momento lì svieni e se non c'è uno che ti aiuta a ritornare in superficie, muori.
So, guys, you go down for any reason. You don't equalize. Don't stay down, head up, pushing this. Because after, you break everything. And you have blood in your saliva. When lungs are full of blood, you breathe, but oxygen is not coming. You feel that you're not breathing. Lung tissues are very, very fragile. And once you break them, after you have the problem. So if you have blood, stop. The guy, the American, that died in Blue Hole last year, he was getting out with blood since 3-4 days. Blackout and blood, blackout and blood. So the day when he died, he went up to the surface and he droned. He droned in his lungs. This is lung squeeze, and it's bad. You try to breathe and you don't feel air, you don't feel oxygen getting in.
January 1968, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I was ready to attempt 70 meters. From Sicily, Enzo wrote to me, "Good luck with your enterprise. Despite being rivals, our passion for the blue abyss makes us brothers and inspires me to seek Neptune's protection for you in the depths." Later that same year, an American entered the scene. He was 5 feet 6 inches tall, with the chest of a giant, a kind of marine monster.
At the submarine base in Connecticut, U.S. Navy diving instructor Bob Croft takes part in a series of exhaustive medical tests. As he dives, Croft's body uses a defense mechanism called blood shift. It moves the blood from his arms and legs to his chest. Can this prevent his lungs from collapsing under the extreme pressure of the deep sea? That's what the scientists will soon find out.
You know, people would say, well, you were a guinea pig. Well, yeah, I guess you could say I was a guinea pig, but I prefer a research subject. My phone rang about 10 o'clock at night, and it was a TV station out of Hartford, Connecticut, calling to see if I'd been watching the news. And I had been watching the news. And Jacques had gone to 230 feet. What I didn't know at the time was that when Jacques hit the surface from that 230-foot dive, he was unconscious. They scooped him up and got him breathing again, and he was okay.
This was the longest dive I've ever made at considerable depth. It seemed endless. When I reached the surface, I was on the verge of losing consciousness. But this had happened to me many times during my practice dives and was perfectly under control.
Of course, the news guy says to me, you're going to go back and break his record now. And without thinking, of course without thinking, I said yes. Next thing you know, he's on the air saying, I just talked with Bob Croft, and he said he's going to go back and break the Frenchman's record. And I thought, what did I just do to myself? The night before I was going for my record, I was drinking a little bit of scotch and smoking a cigar, and about 1 o'clock in the morning, Jacques came in, knocked on the door, he came in, and he was flabbergasted. He was dumbfounded. He, you know, telling me with his French accent, you should be sleeping. You should be in bed resting, getting ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow is your big day. You should not be smoking. You should not be drinking scotch, you know. Jacques, I think, was much more disciplined than me. He would practice yoga. He would do the yoga breathing. He would stand on his head with his arms for 25, 30 minutes sometimes. And he would go into almost a trance-like state on occasion.
Inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose. When exhale, the sound will become humming bee sound. I will demonstrate, then you practice. Inhale.
Traditionally, yoga means getting connected with the self and then going into a kind of transcendence. Mayol came to this institution because there are many yoga techniques where we work with breathing. And these breathing techniques could be useful in his own profession of diving. I just tried to explain to him how these different techniques work, like Kapalbhati, fast breathing, then Uddiyana, a kind of cessation of breath. I will not say breath holding, because at the mental level we are still having the awareness of inhalation or exhalation. Air is not moving, but the mind is still working, inhaling or exhaling.
Man is connected to life by respiration. The classical Western point of view considers breathing to be a simple physiological process. In traditional Eastern thought, it is something deeper. Through breathing, we can achieve the union of body and mind and our integration into the marine environment.
This picture was taken when we lived in Canada, in Edmonton, Alberta. It's my mother and my father. It was a love-hate relationship in a way. When they divorced in 1957, I was 7 years old. My brother would have been 3. Yeah. So Mama was alone with 2 little children. It had to be hard on her.
Freeport, Bahamas, within spitting distance of Cuba, where we meet a Frenchman, Jacques Mayol. He loves 3 things: the sea, women, and adventure. The adventure is satisfied by searching for gold in the rapids of California, or treasure on the wreck of a sunken galleon. The sea is always there, and the women.
After they divorced, he went first to Fort Lauderdale with some friends. They went treasure hunting. And then I think he went to the Turks and Caicos Islands to fish for lobster because you could make quite a bit of good money there. He was quite a vagabond.
Che lui ha fatto di tutto, ha fatto perfino, ha avuto, girando, ha abbandonato la famiglia, ha fatto anche l'autista all'attrice a Hollywood, da ragazzo, a Zazzara, un'attrice famosa di quell'epoca, ha fatto tutti i mestieri. Una 500, un Volkswagen con lettino sopra, la compagna giusta, possibilmente si cambiava anche meglio, però era la sua vita, era il suo sogno. Il punto della terra non gli interessava quello che era. O il Giappone, o l'Africa, o la cosa, andava bene tutto.
En fait, c'était un vrai nomade, et c'était un nomade qui voyageait de façon un peu extraordinaire, avec rien. En fait, c'était assez étrange. Moi, je me souviens l'avoir voyagé avec lui à l'aéroport de Miami, avec son passeport d'une main, et puis une sangle avec une paire de palmes, un tuba et un masque de l'autre côté, et c'était tout. Il n'avait rien d'autre. Et donc, c'était très étrange, quoi. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'il, de temps en temps, il squattait chez les uns, il s'imposait un petit peu chez les uns et chez les autres, comme ça. C'était pas vraiment de l'amitié, justement, comme ça. Il profitait beaucoup des autres personnes, quoi.
Era molto parco nelle sue, e noi amici lo accettavamo per quella che era. Ricordo quando veniva a Torino, a casa mia, si fermava un mese e mezzo in casa. A me non dava fastidio perché io lo trattavo come amico, era per me un idolo, era un qualcosa di speciale. Però lui non partecipava mai a nessuna spesa, diciamo, monetaria.
Siamo sì diventati amici, però quando si lavora con Jacques, Jacques non esiste. Jacques è un'altra persona. Jacques entra nel... non lo so dove, comunque sembra un attore. Lui si crea il personaggio per guadagnare più quattrini. La cosa che più mi ha sorpreso è stata quella quando ha chiamato per un lavoro, senza specificare bene cosa, per girare questo film a Triangolo delle Bermude. Io ero molto contento di andare a Triangolo delle Bermude con Jacques Mayol a girare un film, no?
Jack, how much longer are you going to spend on those maps and charts?
JP, can't you see I'm busy?
Oh, come on now. I think it's about time we had some fun.
Poi mi disse che era un film abbastanza sexy, erotico, quello che sia. Vabbè. Sono rimasto veramente sorpreso quando ho letto la sceneggiatura, la fantasia di quest'uomo. Il regista è stato lui che ha messo un altro nome, lui non ha messo il suo nome. Per me rimane un genio nel campo della Subaco. Sceneggiatore, regista, ha fatto tutto. Lui era una persona molto positiva, pensava positivo, rideva, come scherzano molte persone, positive, allegro. Ma non parlava della sua vita privata. Per lui era come un muro buio, è un buio, non si entrava.
During those years, we never heard from Papa. In fact, I didn't know if he was even dead or alive. One day I was at the library. I was reading a magazine. There was my father. He's alive. He's in Florida. I got the phone number, I called, and he was, of course, shocked but happy to hear from me. And he came to pick me up. We went on a Russian ship called the Litva to get acquainted. And the Litva was going into the Black Sea, so it was a 2-week cruise that I could be with my father. My big disappointment was that he was with a girlfriend, didn't tell me that she was coming. He had a German girlfriend, Gerda, that he had lived with in Florida, actually. I was very torn and very hurt, moody and pouting because I was like a little girl. I want my father's love and he's not giving me enough attention, that kind of thing. So I think in his mind, he still saw me as a little girl. He didn't understand things, the importance of certain things in the relationship and family. There was somehow some things eluded him. And I don't know if that was because he himself had left his family at a young age. In fact, he didn't go back to see his mother and father for like 18 years or something. He was gone.
Gerda, che era come lui di carattere, ideale per lei, che sicuramente aveva il solito carattere suo. Libero, gli piacevano gli animali, gli piaceva, lei era tutto contento in questa foresta dove stavano. Dalla costruzione della casa come la volevano, la macchina era sempre quella, il mangiare era quello. Tutto quello che andava bene a lui era uguale identico per lei. Jack è rimasto fregato. Al supermercato un drogato l'ha dato una coltellata che non conosceva.
He came where I was working one day and I went downstairs and he could barely talk. He was crying and told me the story about Gerda's death. She died in his arms. And after that, he never spoke again about Gerda.
E da quel momento lui ha cominciato a entrare in una depressione più profonda, perché in realtà Jacques Mayol è sempre stato un uomo solo.
どう特別な友情っていうか、ジャックが僕のことをやっぱり俺たちは言葉でコミュニケーションはなかなか取れないけれども、やっぱりそのイルカたちのようにテレパシーだって勝山っていうところのマリーナでアルバイトをしてる時にマリーナの社長が「成田なんか変な外人が成田さんいますか?」って日本語で来てるぞ。誰？パッと言ったらそのジャック・マヨールなんですよ。でいろいろ話してるうちにジャックさんが泣き始めたんですよね。でまあその話聞くと僕もちょっとこう泣きたくなるんですけど、実はゲルダが死んだ。ピアノそこにあったんですね。でピアノを弾き始めた。Music is my friend, music is my sweetheart. でもゲルダを失ったことは音楽では埋められない。そういうことを言ってましたね。で僕のダイビングの大崎栄信という先生がいろいろ伊豆の伊東にある大光院ってお坊さんを紹介して、でそこでお坊さんからいろんなその精神的な日本の禅の精神的なことを教わりながらトレーニングしてたんですね。
When I lived in the temple, my Zen master noticed that I was often preoccupied. He immediately reassured me. No thinking, no thinking. The master simply distracted the stream of thoughts that tormented me by giving me a whack on the shoulders with his cane.
禅という漢字からどのような意味をとおっしゃられれば、無駄のない美しさ、平和な心、それに尽きると思います。ジャックさんがより深く潜るために禅で得たことは、きっと心に留め置かない、考えたことをすべて流していく、暗闇の中吸い込まれていく恐怖をそれすらもとどめ置かずに流していける、そんな心境を作れたのだと思います。じいちゃんから聞いた話で、考えれば脳は酸素を使う、考えなければそれだけ長く水の中にいられる、単純にそんなことの積み重ねであったのかと思っております。
Going deep is a journey inside yourself. Mayol was the first to bring that element into freediving. People talk a lot about the silence of the depths. There's very little to hear underneath there, but it also silences the internal noise, the kind of mental chatter that we're constantly engaged in during our everyday lives. I think that's one of the most attractive and appealing aspects of freediving, is just to be able to exist in complete silence. It's like there's this connection between the breath and time, and that's suspended when you're holding your breath.
Before all else, our origin is the sea. And our origin in the womb is nothing more than an extension of it. Is it the fish that has evolved into man? Or is it man who contains the blueprint of the fish? The man who descends into the sea while holding his breath is the same as marine mammals. The dolphin is not a fish when he goes underwater. He's like you and me. He holds his breath. He breathes.
人はやっぱりこういう社会を作る前にはもうちょっとピュアななんかイルカ的な生き物だったんじゃないかなって思ってると思うんですね。だからジャックはそういうふうに変えてそのイルカ的な方向にイルカに会いに行ってイルカ的な方法に自分も行って自分はイルカ的に生きるっていうことをしたかったんじゃないかなと思うんですよね。だからそのジャックも自分は海に入ってそれでイルカと泳いでイルカ的な部分をもっとこう学んでで基本的には、ね、でもねやっぱりその人の社会とか人間っていうものをどっかそのジャックはちょっと斜に構えて見てたようなところがあってそのまあある時に環境の話を僕としてたんですけどもその時にジャックが僕に話したのはで本当は人間はいない方が自然にとってはいいんだ。
Jack believed that we were connected to the ocean. After all, the planet Earth is surrounded with water, and we are where we are born. We are, we are in the placenta, surrounded with water. It is our element. So we have this inside. We only have to discover in ourselves.
Qu'est-ce que tu dis? Parle un peu. Fais-moi une boule. Bravo, voilà. On va nager. Viens, 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 Lolo. Viens, viens. Viens, Lolo. Viens. Voilà. Bonjour, on nage. Je suis ta maman. Je t'apprends à nager. Je t'apprends à nager. Avec tes petites pattes palmées. Et tu palmes seulement avec les pattes de devant, hein. Tu ne sers pas les pattes de derrière pour nager. Fais-moi voir, fais-moi voir. Voilà, fais-nous voir. Voilà, les pattes de devant. Qu'est-ce que tu me racontes? Oh, quelle jolie histoire. Des histoires de poissons, bien sûr, des histoires de loups. On va aller nager ensemble, hein, tout à l'heure. Oui. Quoi? Viens. Allez, va dans l'eau. Fais voir, petite patte.
L'histoire commence comme ça. Nous étions en train de faire un film qui était basé sur mon contact avec les baleines. Bon, on est parti, on a fait un voyage où il y a les baleines à bosse. Et là, on a fait une dernière escale au Caicos. Quand le bateau est arrivé à quai, qui je vois sur le quai? Jacques Mayol. Donc quand il est revenu le lendemain, je lui ai dit voilà, est-ce que tu as envie de voir des baleines? Mais il m'a dit, j'ai jamais vu les baleines encore, je travaille avec les dauphins, mais pas avec les baleines. Les baleines à bosse sont des baleines qui chantent. Tous ces bruits provoquaient des vibrations dans l'eau, et lui l'a plus ressenti parce qu'il est en apnée, il est complètement en osmose avec le milieu. Il y a un moment assez intéressant et assez émouvant. À un moment donné, on a eu la chance d'avoir deux baleines qui étaient en train de faire la parade nuptiale, la parade d'amour, si vous voulez. Elles étaient en train de se tourner autour et d'émettre un tas de sons. Elles se parlaient, en fait, hein. Et Jacques est descendu à ce moment-là, pris entre les deux monstres, on va dire, géants. Ce tout petit bonhomme perdu au milieu, là, très calme, très tranquille.
decided to try and attain a goal which at one time was considered unthinkable. I was convinced that human beings could go as deep as 100 meters. I surrounded myself with a crew of researchers, doctors, and technicians, and was dedicated entirely to a series of experiments that had never been done before, including the first underwater X-ray machine. I trained at high altitudes to enhance the multiplication of red blood cells, and followed that with long periods of increased apnea. What remains to be discovered is how deep I can dive.
E venne il direttore pubblicitario della Cressi, qui da me che ero in contatto perché avevo una scuola, e mi chiese insieme a questo signore con questo baffino che molto simpatico era, mi chiese se me la sentivo di fare questo tipo di lavoro con loro per questi nuovi record, che poi vennero chiamati esperimenti applicati, insomma. Andai subito d'accordo con Jacques. Lui fu subito giusto, che mi disse, bene, facciamo, e cominciamo a lavorare.
Certamente lo yoga per Jacques è stato un aiuto, lui diceva, ma non solo lui, anche i ricercatori, tutti quanti, e diceva che sott'acqua il 50% della sua resa era data dal fisico, dall'allenamento, ma il 50% era grazie allo yoga.
E secondo lui il punto zero non esiste dell'organismo umano. L'uomo può andare a qualsiasi profondità. Questa è una sua cosa sua. Lui voleva arrivare al punto massimo della profondità per dimostrare, e se facendo quello, anche se avesse perso la vita, era tranquillo, ragazzi, è il mio sogno.
Tanto era naturalmente un documento di tutto quello che succedeva, si facevano filmati e si facevano fotografie. E poi si distribuivano ai vari mezzi di informazione, soprattutto riviste, giornali. Per cui i media parlavano di lui, parlavano dei suoi esperimenti e quindi facevano di lui un personaggio.
Mr. Mayo, have you ever been afraid of death during your dive?
Well, first you have to understand what death is about to not be afraid of death. Of course, I've had sometimes problems, but I've never been really afraid of death during my dives. I have been afraid of technical failures or technical mistakes, but never of death itself.
Non è che facevamo i pastori noi, Noi facevamo tutta la stagione in acqua e poi al tempo che si faceva il record, e chiaramente eravamo ben allenati noi. Guarda, quando si fanno quelle discese lì, ci può essere sempre qualcosa che non è stato calcolato, l'incidente c'è sempre dietro l'angolo.
Ehi, Carla! Guardati da qua, da qua. Vieni da qua.
You have a clear idea of a situation. You imagine how it's going to be. And then, when the time finally comes, it's very different from what you imagined. I am alert but conscious of the dangers posed by a prolonged delay at this depth. There's still 5 minutes to go to the big dive. I am sitting on a platform. My fins are already underwater. My chest is still out of the water to ventilate my lungs. I close my eyes. My breathing becomes slower and slower, and I begin to reclaim my inner calm. I am ready.
Et c'est un chercheur français, Jacques Mayol, qui vient de battre le record du monde à l'île d'Elbe. Il a plongé en apnée à moins 100 mètres.
Jacques Mayol, 49 ans. Chinois et japonais l'appellent le dauphin français. Le record du monde de plongée en apnée, c'est-à-dire sans l'aide d'appareil respiratoire.
Jacques Mayol, votre propre record du monde?
Eh bien, ça s'est passé il y a 10 jours. J'avais prédit, j'avais dit, l'homme atteindra 100 mètres. Et effectivement, nous avons atteint les 100 mètres.
Alors, 100 mètres, est-ce un plafond limite?
Je pense que non. Alors, combien de mètres en plus? Cette question, c'est un point d'interrogation.
Le 41e Festival du film de Cannes s'est ouvert au Grand Bleu. Le Grand Bleu, c'est le titre du 3e film de Luc Besson. D'après l'histoire de Jacques Mayol, un homme qui plonge à plus de 100 mètres en apnée, un film très attendu puisque jusqu'à présent, personne ne l'avait vu.
The film was inspired by what Jacques was trying to communicate. The spiritual side of what he was talking about is universal. The human being's relationship with the ocean and the sea is primordial. My first impression was, like all great characters of his generation, with the tinge of celebrity, a seducer, a showman. He had all those qualities, that craziness a little bit. And for him, it was great because he became even more known because of it.
Le Grand Bleu de Luc Besson est en train d'entrer par la grande porte dans l'histoire du cinéma français. Car à ce jour, 3,5 millions de spectateurs, après 20 semaines d'exploitation seulement. Et à ce niveau, ce n'est plus un film, mais un véritable phénomène de société.
Je pense que ça doit être la 5e fois que je vais le voir, là.
C'est la 5e fois que j'y vais, là.
Et pourquoi?
C'est vraiment un très bon film.
Un véritable succès. 18e semaine, 400 000 entrées, surtout un film qui a été présenté pendant tout l'été, avec notre salle qui n'a pas des amplis, donc c'est vraiment un triomphe.
グランブルーの映画を僕は見て、なんか海の捉え方がすごい変わった感じがしました。海っていうのはやっぱりなんか僕その頃はもうちょっと物理的にここにある水だみたいな感じがしていて、でなんかそこでその内面的ないろんなことをなんていうかな探求できるような場っていうのを考えたことがなかったので。その世界っていうのはなんかすごく神秘的でもあって、日本の人は特にそういう神秘的なものとかなんかってすごく興味があって、例えば僕らの年代とかその次の年齢とか 特に海好きな人、ダイビングやってる人なんかはもうほとんど知ってるぐらい有名な映画だし、ジャックのことはみんな知ってますね。
Για μένα νομίζω το μεγαλύτερο μοντέλο είναι ο Ζακ Μαγιόλ. Ήθελα να ζήσω το ίδιο. Να μπορέσω να είμαι τόσο χαλαρή στο νερό, να μην νιώθεις ότι θέλεις να αναπνέεις και να νιώθεις ελεύθερος. Και από τότε τρελάθηκα, είχα αυτό το όνειρο κάπου στην άκρη στο μυαλό μου. Δηλαδή είχα αυτή την τρέλα, ήθελα να πάω βαθιά, κάτι με φώναζε. Όταν ήμουν πιο μικρή, γενικά ήμουν πολύ νευρικό κορίτσι. Πήγαινα δεξιά-αριστερά, δεν σταμάταγα ποτέ. Και η άπνοια μου φέρε αυτή τη χαλαρότητα, να μάθω να σταματάω κάποια στιγμή και να μπορέσω να συγκεντρωθώ στον εαυτό μου.
Mi ricordo che l'ho visto, avrà avuto 2000 persone che gli chiedevano l'autografo, volevano conoscerlo. Io ero emozionatissimo. E mi invitava ad andare all'Elba per andare sott'acqua con lui. E io mi ricordo questo primo tuffo con lui, il mare era piatto. Poi alla fine magari cercavo anche di scendere un po' più di lui. All'inizio lo osservavo, poi facevo un po' il gallo, no? Scendevo un po' di più. Io avevo 25 anni, lui ne aveva 70, non è che era una cosa così difficile. Allora alla fine di quella giornata in acqua con Maiol mi ricordo che gli chiesi: allora Jacques, cosa ne pensi di me come apneista? E lui mi ha guardato e mi ha detto: tu di apnea non ci capisci veramente niente. Diceva: tu non hai la minima idea di quello che ti può dare l'apnea in termini di piacere, di sensazione. Perché per te scendere significa spingere al massimo e fare qualcosa in più del tuffo prima. E mi ricordo il giorno dopo mi presentai, pensavo di stare in acqua con lui, invece si scese in questa piccola baia di fianco a casa sua dove c'erano solo 10-12 metri di profondità. Io avevo già fatto dei tuffi a 70-75, quindi volevo andare a fondo. Mi abbandonò lì e se ne andò. Dopo 3 settimane e mezzo ero ancora lì in quella baia e ero assolutamente demotivato. Ed è stato proprio in uno di quei giorni lì in cui non avevo più niente da provarmi, cioè non volevo spingere, scendevo e salivo, che per la prima volta sentivo la pinna pian piano che diventava un prolungamento dei miei piedi, delle mie gambe. E questo mi ha permesso per la prima volta di vedermi da fuori.
I was just a kid and I was so excited to be meeting Jacques Mayol, like, oh, wow, I was totally starstruck. And then I met him and I'm like, man, this guy is, he's a regular guy, but he's not. I had done both of my records by that point when I met him, and I was deciding, am I going to continue doing records? It's right for some people. It was not right for me. and it was not right for Jacques. Jacques was not a huge supporter of the competitive side of freediving. Freediving is way more than that. It's a feeling. It's when you're underwater, it's almost like you can feel every drop of water that's touching your skin. And it totally takes you over. And at some point for me, the competitive element of that started to detract from it. Jacques was very influential in my relationship with the ocean. You know, that leaves a lasting impression on you.
Je trouve que Mayol, il a eu un rôle incroyable vis-à-vis de la jeunesse, vis-à-vis d'autres apnéistes qu'il a formés. Il y a un moment où les choses ont quand même un peu basculé, c'est avec le Grand Bleu. Jacques Mayol n'a jamais été complètement satisfait de ce tournage, et surtout après le grand succès qu'a eu ce film. En fait, il était frustré de ne pas avoir été lui-même à l'image. De temps en temps, il était aigri, il envoyait paître les gens pour aucune raison apparente, quoi. J'ai du mal à... Ça ne ressemblait pas du tout au personnage qu'il était précédemment. Alors on a essayé de corriger ce problème, je me souviens pour Canal+, il a été sollicité pour faire un direct avec un grand show. Et en fait, bon, ça s'est pas très bien passé. Lors de ce tournage qui était en direct, en fait, Jacques Mayol avait énormément de pression parce qu'on avait 4 caméras sous-marines. Il y avait des grues qui filmaient depuis la surface son départ, il y avait des caméras en surface, il y avait partout. C'était vraiment un énorme barnum. Il s'est fait un accident à l'oreille. Il s'est un peu claqué l'oreille en descendant peut-être un peu trop vite. Et du coup, arrivé en surface, il était mais fou furieux. Et en fait, ça l'a complètement déstabilisé. Même si ça ne se voyait pas trop pour le grand public, lui, il le ressentait comme un échec.
J'ai eu un peu peur l'oreille. Oh putain de sa race.
そういう彼がだんだんまあなんというかな、元気がなくなってきて、でそしたら彼はディプレッションだって僕に言って、でその時僕ディプレッションの意味が分からなくて、なんか二言目にはね「お順次一番大事なものはな、家族とお前犬も飼ってるだろう、それから家もあるだろう、だからその家と家族と犬とな、そういうものが一番大事だからな、本当に大事にしろよ」って。
晩年はやっぱり
ジャックさんは寂しかったんだと思いますね。まあ昔のようにあんまりこうファンもジャックさんジャックさんって言ってこなかったし、一人でいることが結構多い。で僕と一緒に泳ごうとか旅行行こうとかいろんなことを誘ってくれたんですけど、僕の方が仕事が忙しくてね。だから本当ここに座ると、ちょっとそういうことを思い出しちゃって、ちょっとねなんか喋りづらいですね。
I am on an extraordinary beach, a real paradise. This is the life I've chosen. But I'm not happy, for I have not found paradise. I have not found the island my subconscious has always sought. I feel it today more than ever. I'm tired and weary. I'm going home to the island of Elba, where I will try to rest.
He brought us to Elba, and we were there like 4 or 5 days with him. It was sad. Yeah, I didn't realize how bad it was. Nobody had told me that he was suffering from depression or whatever it was. I'm not even sure that it was depression. I asked him, I said, you're not blind, you're not in a wheelchair. Why do you want to quit life? And he said, well, I have my reasons, so he wouldn't tell us. And he'd hoped to have a second family, that he told me. At some point in his life, he had hoped to have a second family, another wife and children. So he was a family man. And then he found himself alone.
Jacques Mayol a décidé de rejoindre le Grand Bleu définitivement. Le célèbre plongeur s'est suicidé en Italie, chez lui, sur l'île d'Elbe, à l'âge de 74 ans. Sa vie et ses records en apnée avaient inspiré le célèbre film de Luc Besson.
La logica per cui una persona commette un suicidio è perché non ha più niente da dare, sì, che era il numero uno e non lo era più. Non ha scritto perché, non ha scritto nulla, ha salutato. Me ne vado in un altro mondo, perché quello era il saluto. Forse un mondo in cui credeva che era meglio di questo.
This area, it was one of the places where with my father, where I really started to learn a lot about diving. It brings out a lot of good memories. But Elba is not just a place for me to dive now, but it's also my home. It's a very sacred place, almost, you know? Of course, it means something to me. There's no doubt about it. It's a reminder. Every time I go down, I like to say hello.
要するにその死生観みたいなものではよく話し合いました。でやっぱり日本はね、自死っていうのはジャックの死には侍的な精神があったかっていう、僕はあったと思ってます。
The one time he told me, when old dolphins, they feel it's time to die, they separate from the group. They go to die alone. And I think that's what he did.
Well, if I were to just close my eyes and think of Jacques, I'd just feel good. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him. Jacques opened my eyes to the greater aspects of the ocean and man's relationship with the ocean, and what we take and what we get back. We really do have a big problem out there in our oceans, and it's people like Jacques that through his legacy of breath hold diving brought people into that environment in a more pure way than scuba diving and all the technical aspects, but just to be at one with the ocean.
Hey, see that right there? It looks like a rock. What? Wait. That's a little crab. Okay, let's see if we can get him to come out and say hi.
I think as a people, as a society, we've gotten so far away from nature. I feel like you get on that treadmill and you're just going and you have this to do and you have this to do and you're dealing with technology, and then I stop and I take a step back and I realize that I'm having a huge nature deficit. I feel like, especially with our kids, that we have this opportunity to find that equilibrium, to seek out that nature and bring that back into our lives and our society.
Now, what do you see right here? Turtle grass. That's right. This one's called turtle grass. And do you remember what lives in the turtle grass? Turtles.
The more that I can teach my kids about the ocean and all that lives there, the more they'll understand it, they'll have no reason to fear it, and that they'll want to take care of it.
You gonna run?
やっぱ人はそういう命っていうのをもっとちゃんと見て、本当にこう全部スピリットがあって何か役目があって生きていて、それをちゃんと見ながらこう暮らしていかなくちゃいけないし、人には2つ役目があるって。で1つはその愛を学ぶことが人の役目であると。でもう1つは自然がちゃんとバランスをとっていけるように、いろんな生き物とか植物とかがバランスをとっていけるように人は見る役目があるんだと。でそれはすごく共感しましたし、ちゃんとそのことを僕が聞いたから人に伝えなくちゃと思って、それでなんかすごい人間の悲しさとかね、そのジャックの死によって感じて、なんかジャックが言ってくれたその大事にする必要のある最大のものっていうのをやっぱり大事にしなくちゃっていうふうにすごい今も思って生きてます。
Homo delphinus will be a man who has understood that he is not separate from nature, nor from the ocean. He will know that from the microbe to the blue whale, nothing is inferior or superior. Everything is connected. I don't see the sea as a new frontier to conquer, a new territory to exploit. I see the sea as the principal element. I am the sea.